Well, hello YouTube, this is RL coming to you again from my channel. I have another podcast for you today. I'm going to be talking about Lethal Weapon 5. So, I just heard a couple of days ago, actually right after I posted my Lethal Weapon ranking video. Hope you enjoyed it. I heard some news that Lethal Weapon 5 is finally in the works, and I cannot be more excited. I've been waiting for a Lethal Weapon 5 for a very long time. I was very disappointed with Lethal Weapon 4. In my last video, I talked about it. I did not rank Lethal Weapon 4 very high on my list. In fact, it was my second worst of Lethal Weapon franchise movies. So this video is going to be a prediction about Lethal Weapon 5. So what I hope to see in this new Lethal Weapon movie, a return to a more grittier story, a real strong villain. Jet Li was actually amazing in his role, but the story was very weak in Lethal Weapon 4. And the comedy was just way too much. It was just overbearing. They didn't have that balance. Lethal Weapon 2 was the perfect balance between comedy, drama, and action. And that's where I want to see it. I don't mind if they go back to the style of Lethal Weapon 1, but they're not going to do that because let's face it, Lethal Weapon is a franchise that is a lot about humor. There has to be humor in Lethal Weapon. But in Lethal Weapon 2, the comedy was perfect. It wasn't too over the top. It was there. It was coming from the characters of Riggs and, of course, Leo Getz. It wasn't just comedy for the sake of comedy. They weren't just doing stupid bits on cell phones and how they're getting smaller and smaller. So that hasn't aged very well because now phones are getting bigger and bigger. So what I really want to see is I want to see Riggs in a darker place than he was in Lethal Weapon 3 and 4. So I think he has to have some anger, some hurt to make the character as engaging and kind of a loose cannon. That's what made him so interesting a character in Lethal Weapon 1 and 2 was the dynamic between Riggs and Murtaugh. How they're so different. Riggs was like completely over the top personality, someone who loved being a cop and was a risk taker, where Murtaugh was a family man. So now these characters are way past their prime. They're not going to be in the police force in some way. I guess they could come out of retirement, but I want to see drama. I don't want to see another Lethal Weapon 4, Lethal Weapon 3. I don't want to see this over the top comedy that is just not realistic and just too crazy and too silly and borderline slapstick. If they could go back to Lethal Weapon 1 and 2 formula, create some anger in Riggs or some kind of, maybe he lost his wife again for maybe a divorce. I know you don't want to go back to the well and repeat what they did in Lethal Weapon 1 and 2. The reason those two movies worked so well is because they were serious movies in a comedy. They weren't just a comedy. You know, when you make it all comedy and not about the drama and there's no real stakes and suffering, then there's really nothing engaging. You don't believe that these characters are in threat. There was actual danger in Lethal Weapon 2 and in 1 as well. So they really have to make this a story that's compelling, that really is worth coming back for. If they're just going to bring back Leo Getz just to bring him back because he's hilarious but has no real use to the story, then I don't really want to see that. Look, he was amazing in Lethal Weapon 2, integral to the plot, but he was not needed in Lethal Weapon 3 and 4 because he was just there. I really want to see what they do with these characters, see it go out on a high. I would love to see Lethal Weapon 5 bring back the grittiness of Lethal Weapon 1 and 2. Because if it's just going to be Lethal Weapon 4 and Lethal Weapon 3, then what's the point? Because Riggs, his character is at his best when he's suicidal. I don't want him to be completely like he was in Lethal Weapon 1 because I don't know if I want to see the character that dark. You could keep it like Lethal Weapon 2, where there is some elements that he's still that loose cannon, and he's got to be some growth, but he's got to have that edge to him. He's got to have that kung fu edge where he's just this lethal weapon, because he wasn't a lethal weapon in 3 and 4. And that's why I didn't like Lethal Weapon 3 and 4, because he wasn't a lethal weapon in those movies. Rene Russo was the lethal weapon in Lethal Weapon 3. Jet Li was the lethal weapon in Lethal Weapon 4. And really, it's supposed to be Riggs who's the lethal weapon. That's why it's called Lethal Weapon, because of Riggs. That's the reason. So if they could find that balance and bring it closer to 2 and 1, then I would be thrilled. Just put them in danger. If there's no threats, then it's not worth seeing it. And wouldn't it be amazing if they somehow connected dots to Lethal Weapon 2 and bring back Leo Getz organically this time? If you remember, in Lethal Weapon 2, he was in need of protection. That's how he met Riggs and Murtaugh, because he was doing money laundering and they were after him, and going to pop him was in danger, so they were sent to protect him. Wouldn't it be interesting if those villains, the people who are still involved in that crime organization in South Africa, come back out of vengeance for what happened in Lethal Weapon 2? So Leo Getz needs protection again. He requests Murtaugh and Riggs because, of course, he really likes them, hasn't seen them in maybe 20 years. It'd be amazing if he needs protection again for these same South Africa apartheid villains from Lethal Weapon 2, have them come back in some way to finish the job, because I'm pretty sure there's still some of them in South Africa in hiding because of no more apartheid. Bring back Murtaugh and Riggs, and they would be needed by the police force to come back because they obviously knew what happened 30 years ago with these South Africans. I think that'd be an amazing way to bring them back, to use Lethal Weapon 2 as a starting base. So those are my thoughts about what I want to see in Lethal Weapon 5. I'm really looking forward to it, because even if they could do 50% of what they did right in Lethal Weapon 2 in Lethal Weapon 5, this movie would be top 3 in the franchise for me. So let's hope for that. So this is my video. I hope you enjoyed it. Like, subscribe, leave a comment below, all that good stuff, and I will have more videos for you in the weeks, months, and years to come. Bye for now.